Laura Hart, the CEO and founder of RoboFun, and I am happy to be here with my colleague, Peter Petto. How are you, Peter?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. For those of you who may not know about RoboFun, we're a minority-owned company on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where we help children have creative experiences with technology. And we have clubs, classes, camps, birthday parties, private lessons, and all of the things that I just said we also do within schools, not the birthday parties, but the rest. Lots of after-school programs in schools and lots of in-school programs. So every few weeks, I interview somebody who's doing really cool things with learning. And in a minute, I'm going to learn more about exactly what Peter's doing. But I just want to say that we're coming up to our winter vacation. And if you're looking for something for your child, this is the time to sign up. That's from the week of February 20th to 24th. And we do robotics, coding, animation, and Minecraft and game design. So we do all of those things. The coding is in Scratch, or for the older kids in Python. And we have very adorable programs for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds called Little Engineers and Little Coders. And we'd love to work with your child. So if any of this is of interest, go to robofun.org and sign up, because you'll learn about all sorts of free things, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today. A really cool free puzzles and math opportunity online this Saturday, February 11th at 2 o'clock. So I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Peter. What's happening Saturday at 2? And then maybe we'll back up and learn more about you.
Oh, yeah. What's happening Saturday at 2 is one of our monthly online math circles. So a math circle is something that was originally developed for teachers. They originated in Eastern Europe probably about 100 years ago, and they came to the United States in 1994 with a couple of professors at Harvard who had been there, liked them, and brought them over. And it's a way of engaging with mathematical puzzles and problems that really exercise your imagination. They're generally a lot of fun. They're sometimes competitive, but oftentimes collaborative as well. So although there may be times where you're playing a game and trying to see if you can win, you may also take a step back and then try to analyze the game and say, together with the person you've played a few games against, can I always win? Or can, maybe if I start, am I the person to win? Or if I play second, can I always win? Questions like that. So we do these things online, and every month on usually the second Saturday of the month, occasionally it's the third, we have an online game that we play with kids and adults and anybody who's interested in playing games, but it's mostly kids, some adults. And we have taken games that you might play like a chessboard or something like that, and we've put them into online missions that collaborate and play online.
Cool. So I am having a little difficulty with the chat, so I'm going to let you all know that if you would like to go to this site, it is run by the Julia Robinson Math Festival. And you're going to go to jrmf.org and go to events, and you'll find the event for Saturday at 2 o'clock. And before we learn more about how Peter got involved with this, I just want to say that this is for kids and for grown-ups. So in the last 6 or 8 months, I found myself getting involved in more and more math-like activities. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I love programming. I love thinking about coding, and I like robotics. And I've been really gotten into it. And I've probably done 4 or 5 of these, both in person and online, and they're really fun. So if you're watching this, you don't have to just have your child do it. You can also do it.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's very much for adults, and it's one thing that people who love math often despair when we look at people who love reading, and often people love both, that one of the things parents do with their children is they read to them, and it's a recreational thing, and you find books that you like, and it becomes an activity that strengthens the math abilities of the child, the math abilities of the parent as well, I would say, and the bond between them. And what do we have for math? Well, this playing of games is very much that kind of activity, because you can think of different kinds of games and puzzles and activities that you can do. And if you play a particular game, this Saturday we're going to be playing a game called Panning for Gold, and it has to do with finding the gold bar that is the authentic one or the fake one, because it has a different weight from the other ones. And it involves a lot of thinking and logic, but it's also just a lot of fun. So, and then if you like that one, you can find other games that are similar to that.
So one question that I'm wondering is, how is this math? If I'm a mom, like, this doesn't look like practicing your multiplication or your division or something like that. How would you explain how this is in many ways more math than the practicing?
Right. Well, it's math in that you often have to use some addition or subtraction or multiplication in solving something. So, I might say to you, if I have a certain number of gold bars, how many times would I have to use the scale to weigh them, and how many would I need to put on each of the sides of the balance in order to guarantee that I find the right one? I mean, sometimes I might do it and get lucky, but if I was very unlucky, what would be the most number of weighings? And if you figure that out for 3 bars or 4 bars or 5 bars, can you develop it for even more? Can you figure out a formula that will tell you for 100 bars, how many weighings would that take? These are kinds of questions that practice some of those skills and give a meaning, because it's not just, I'm going to practice and I'm going to get a right answer or wrong answer. It's
Right.
like, I'm going to use it, I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to develop a way to win or not win, win or guarantee or develop a strategy where I know how to win given a situation.
So one of the ways that we can see this as math, or that it is math, is that math involves a lot of strategy, and math
Right.
involves a lot of problem solving.
Right.
And this is a way to get to that in a very playful, fun way.
Right.
Sure.
Right. And we might have games that involve, like, we tend to do things that start out a little simpler. We might not play chess, but we might find one chess piece and make some rules of what we want to have happen on a chessboard. Like, we want to get it from one place to another and alternate moves, and the person who gets it there first, or the person who is forced to get it there. We might have different rules. Those would be the things we would do. And then we might also ask ourselves, is there another rule we could use that would make it more fun? So not only do we analyze games, we create them or we improve them.
So in essence, we're understanding that math takes rules, but there's not just always one rule. There's many ways to solve different things.
Sure, there's often many ways to solve them, and then it's often useful to talk about, is one way better than another? Mm-hmm. And you might even find out something like, and I'm not thinking of anything particular here, that this way works really good if you have an even number of spaces to get through, and this way works better if you have an odd number. Right. Either one will work in either situation, but one is easier to execute and requires maybe less thinking after you've thought up what it is initially.
Right. So the organization that provides the puzzles, could I just go to that website and play them on my own?
You could. There is a tab at the top that says puzzles. And it's kind of like Netflix or something like that. It's not always the same puzzles every month. Huh. We put a lot of the favorites there. And as we improve the online experience of the puzzles, we tend to put the ones that are the most improved ones for playing online. And we're always like tweaking the instructions as we play at some of these math festivals with kids, we find things to improve. And so those go online, and so sometimes things disappear for a while, and then they're back after we make some improvements.
So tell us a little bit about the we. Who, who's the guy behind the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz? Who is the Julia Robinson Math Festival? Who is Julia Robinson?
Well, Julia Robinson was a great mathematician, and you can
Okay.
go on YouTube and Google her name and get probably a 10 or 15-minute biography of her and one of the famous math problems that she solved. I mean, most mathematicians who are like super famous solved at least one famous problem. And back in the probably turn of the last century, somewhere around early 1900s, there was a mathematician named David Hilbert in Germany, in Göttingen, a college there that was sort of the center of mathematics, defined a number of problems that he thought were the most important unsolved problems. And of his problems, the majority of them have been solved. There's still probably a dozen or more that haven't, but she solved one of them.
I see.
And it's a hard problem. I would have a hard time even describing it exactly. One of the things about the puzzles we do are usually, we can describe the problem usually in 2 or 3 sentences. And that doesn't mean it's easy to solve, but we go for something that you can initially see really well. So that's who it's named after. It was founded by another woman. Her name is Nancy Blackman, and she's from California.
I met Nancy, I think.
Okay. So she's a great person. And in 2007, she founded this to honor Julia Robinson and to bring the joy of mathematics to multi-activity, in-person events, which she called festivals. And there are tables around a room, usually 8 or 10 tables, each with a different game at them. And that's part of, although we do one particular game at each monthly meeting, part of the sort of philosophy of Julia Robinson Math Festival is that kids should get to pick what game they like best.
Right.
So they can go to the table that seems like it's the most fun. And if that's not the problem that clicks with them, they go to another one. And that's just like mathematicians might start at one of Hilbert's problems and work on that for a couple of years and then say, maybe I should go for a different one. So picking the problems you attack is part of being a real mathematician. And so she started doing that, and year after year, it got bigger and bigger. I became aware of it probably in 2019, 2020, somewhere in then. And at that time, they were doing about over 100 festivals a year in many countries.
I just want to stop you for a second. So we're talking about 2 different things: the actual in-person festivals where a child would go to your local Y for a math festival or the school gym, versus what's happening Saturday is online.
Right.
So
okay. Exactly. And when you go to the website, you'll see both of them listed. You'll see where real ones are, and you'll see where our online ones are.
Okay.
So they're both on there, and they're pretty clearly described. So you would see the difference.
All right.
What happened when it was early 2020, it was March 2020 that a fellow teacher told me, why don't you come help at this math festival? It seems to be the kind of thing you would have fun at. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. But unfortunately, all our schools shut down about a week before I went to see that. And at that time, Julia Robinson Math Festival sort of pivoted and said, how are we going to do this now that everybody's staying at home? And so the whole idea of bringing these things online came about, which is, a parallel activity to the in-person events. And the Community Math Circle is run by people who just were involved with this and loved doing it so much that it sort of became an activity of its own.
So as I've learned about this organization since about, I'd say, September or October of 2022, everyone involved volunteers their time because they love doing this. Or not everyone, I'm sure, but the people who are teaching are primarily teachers who love this enough to want to spend time on a Saturday introducing and supporting.
Yeah, a lot of us got involved. Other people had contact with the festival from ways other than mine, but when the pandemic started, it was happening once a week. There was something every week, for a
Wow.
while that was online, because kids were at home often with time on their hands, and we ourselves, who also love math and being with kids, were at home with time on our hands.
Yep.
And as in-person stuff started to unwind and start becoming more available, we just loved the contact with each other as teachers from all over the country and different countries, that we wanted to keep the online part going as well, partly as a way for kids who might not have one handy to go to be able to go to one, and
Right.
partly as another way to, teachers can be timid as well. You're used to doing something every day for a while, and you say,
Right.
try this brand new thing.
Yep.
It's a little intimidating,
Yep.
but if you come to one of our festivals first, you get to one of our online math circles first, you can watch and play. If you like it more than that, you can come learn how we try to coach people to do these things. And if if that's not enough, you can even help us figure out how to make the online apps better to play online. So we have a lot of entry points for teachers and kids. And we actually have a couple of students who are part of the steering committee and who facilitate as well. They just like it so much, they say, I would just as much like to facilitate as play. And if a kid loves to do that, we'll figure a way for that to happen too.
What a cool opportunity. So at RoboFun, we generally have a lunch period for our vacation days where we throw out a tablecloth onto the floor of our studio and we all eat lunch and we play games. And I'm really excited to start to introduce some of these games during lunchtime. I think they'll be really fun.
Well, right. And I don't want to make it sound totally online for the parents or kids who might be listening to this. If you go to the Julia Robinson website, you'll also find some of those activities. There's something you would print out, so you could print it out and then have it to play, with pencils and paper and stuff like that. And a lot of, it depends on the game, but a lot of times that's more satisfying than it is clicking and dragging on screen. I mean, different games work better. I mean, we have some games that people love online. You put them in person, you try to come up with a way in person, they don't like it, and vice versa.
Right. So, Peter, how did you get involved in all of this? What were you doing before that somehow led you into this?
Well, I worked for about 35 years running an aluminum foundry, so I was a manufacturer for a long time.
Okay.
And when our company wound down and decided to close its doors, I needed to think of something else to do. And it seemed that a lot of the activities that I did at my workplace involved teaching other people, teaching people in our plant how to do statistics or avoid hazards in the workplace, teaching our customers how to design things that might make use of the skills we had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, maybe I'd like to be a teacher. I mean, I'd spent a lot of my life helping my cousins and nephews and stuff like that with different schoolwork, usually adding fractions. I have to say, the number of times I've taught people how to add fractions, I would not want to try to count. It's a big number.
Getting those denominators the same, that was always the key, I think.
Right. That's the key, but it's not always easy to see that it's the key.
Right.
And I wish I'd known some of the stuff we do with Julie Robinson to get more visualizations into that.
Right.
Because when I became a teacher, I found out, the power of different ways of looking at something, and that multiple representations of something can really make you understand something, not just remember it.
Right. Like there's different avenues into our brains depending on which brain it is, and not all brains operate the same.
Yeah, it may sound a little glib, but I've had, people ask me, how do you memorize all this stuff? I said, if you understand it,
you're not memorizing.
You don't need to memorize it. It will you figured it all out. So
right. So you left your foundry and you became a high school math teacher?
High school math teacher. So I taught statistics, algebra, lots of different things, a little bit of computer science, a little bit of, I probably had a little bit of Julia Robinson spirit before I met them, in that if a student wanted to do an independent study on something that excited them, I was all for trying to help them figure out a way to get credit for it. And so we would do that. And I taught joyfully for a long time, up until the time I was planning to retire the year the pandemic kicked in. So my last year of teaching ended up, sadly, without lots of, graduation ceremonies and all
Right.
that stuff. A
Right.
lot of it happened online, or in our case, with graduates in the street and all their parents and everything along the sides of the streets. So a lot of big distance there, but we did get some good celebrations in, although at a good distance. And so I've started looking up Julia Robinson. Since I hadn't been able to go to that, I looked at the online website and I saw, wow, they're doing this online stuff. And, so I went and watched a couple, and then I started helping facilitate, and then I just got more involved and got onto the steering committee. And to me, it's an opportunity to learn more as well, because I think any teacher or professor will tell you, you want to learn algebra, teach it for 5 years, because it'll take 5 years of teaching it before you really
Yeah.
know it.
So one of the things you mentioned as we were preparing earlier this week or last week is that you would find that you would bring things like this into your classroom, and your kids were like, come on, we want to do more of those things, and that they were very motivating.
Right. Yeah. It was not very thoughtful or purposeful, although I like to think of myself as thoughtfully trying to always do it things the best way. But I had been at a math conference. I'd gone to a math circle. When I came back after missing a day, what did you do? What did you like? Oh, I like this math circle. We did this thing called a rational tangle, which is a sort of a thing where you make knots with ropes and people dancing around in circles, sort of. And the kid said, well, let's play it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my most struggling math class. And it's, rational and irrational things in the denominator. I mean, it was really stuff that, pre-calculus kids struggled with.
Right.
And I thought, well, they want to do it. They're enthusiastic. Let's give it a try. And I was astonished with how they got into it. I mean, I came from a business, and I always thought my main strong point is going to be, I know practical applications of every kind of math. I mean, throughout my life, math was the key to me being successful in lots of ways. And that's true, and that helped in a lot of cases. But I discovered that day, and in the days to follow, that playing a game that has nothing to do with anything is extremely compelling to a lot of people, and will draw their attention and focus and all the things we try to help kids develop.
Yep.
More than something that you can say is practical. And so I said, if we can get what, I often taught classes that other teachers taught as well. So we needed to stay somewhat in sync. People do homework together and help each other. We always want to encourage that. But I said, if we can get done by the end of the day, Thursday, what we usually get done in 5 days, we can make Friday play day, and that was good. And there were weeks where we got it done by Wednesday, and we had 2 play days. So it was motivating to do the more routine stuff, or some of them, just what's on the curriculum, I guess is what I would say. Everything we need to say we got done when the year ends.
Right. So I want to encourage our audience. Hello, and we're having trouble with the chat. So you might be able to chat a question to us or not. I'm not sure. I, for some reason, having done this now for 3 years, the chat is not working today. But I want to basically encourage all of you watching. This is an amazing experience. And it really, in a joking way, one can think, is math being fun an oxymoron? Is that a real possibility? But this is a way to really reset your thinking about math. And it's just beautiful and very exciting. And I find myself going to the site and messing around with puzzles and talking to my new math friends about, and what part of math am I learning, et cetera, et cetera. So it is fun. And I have somebody in my office who is chatting because we can't chat. So we have the link for signing up for Saturday. And I would also just encourage that, yes, this is for your child. Yes, this could be for you, but it also is great for teachers. It's an amazing resource, free professional development, a real eye-opening way to look at teaching. As Peter was just saying, oh my God, I'm going to have these kids do rational and irrational numbers in a dance, and this could be my downfall. This is a very safe way to see how it can work. Because for those of you who have taught, when you have those 20 or 30 kids in front of you and it can be an intimidating moment to start a brand new thing in a different way.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I actually have to say the kids were so into it that without me making an effort, these games are enticing. Kids who I taught, let's say Algebra 2 to, said, well, you're doing these games with consumer math. Do we ever get to do one?
Right.
They would see the stuff on the detritus on the walls and stuff that needed to be cleaned up afterwards. And so it ended up infecting, I shouldn't say infecting, because a good infection, all of my classes, including, AP statistics and, other very advanced courses were also, you can find games, games that are of probability, risk and reward, expected value. We have games that do that as well as, just arithmetic and stuff like that. And those are parts of what you'll see on the Julia Robinson website. I think there's places where you can go where you can see some of the objectives of the activity, and
I'm sure there is if you want more info. And
right, you just send an email to info@jrmf.org and say, I need something for geometry, this right triangles, and someone there or will say these are the 4 that work well for that.
And having participated in a number of online prep meetings, this is a community of people who would be thrilled at a question like that. I'm struggling in a 3rd grade class with X, Y, and Z, and somebody in that steering committee would go, yes, I love this area of math. I can't wait to provide some great puzzles. So don't hesitate.
Right.
So I think we're coming to the end of our time. I want to just restate 2 things. I'm Laura Hart. I'm the founder of RoboFun, and we offer kids really the same concept as the Julia Robinson Math Festival with STEM, with robotics, coding. If it's interesting and compelling, children will dive in. And we're located at 102nd and Broadway, and we have camps, classes, birthday parties, private lessons. And the week after next is our vacation week, where we have programs from 9 to 4 every day. And you can sign up for just a morning or just an afternoon or the whole day or the whole week. And every day we do different things with robotics, coding, Minecraft, all sorts of cool stuff. And then the last thing I want to say is, first of all, a huge thank you to Peter. And to go to the website that is the link that is in this chat and check out Saturday. You can also be a kind of a lurker. You can just watch and see how it all goes, but I highly recommend it. It's Eastern time. It's at 2 to 3:15. So, and if you want to learn more about RoboFun, we're at robofun.org. And I send out twice a week a blog with things like this. And my parents know it. And sometimes we have a free class at RoboFun. We did about a month ago. So it's a good opportunity for you to learn more resources. So again, Peter, thank you so much. This has been just great.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.